My name is Fatima Vauda, and I'm the Managing Director of 274 Investment Managers. My pathway to getting a seat at the table was incredibly difficult, so I'm thrilled at the opportunity to speak about gender lens investing. There's a growing body of evidence and attention on the importance of improving the participation of women as entrepreneurs, employees, and leaders, in recognition that inclusive economic growth is unachievable without the empowerment of women. At 274, we regularly receive requests from retirement funds who want to positively shift attitudes and practices to support women, including harvesting more investment returns through expanding the market opportunities for women, but do not know how to go about doing so. And so we decided to put together a very simple presentation which will provide trustees with practical guidance on how to develop and implement a successful gender lens investment strategy. This presentation will seek to answer the following types of questions. What is gender lens investing? Why invest with a gender lens? How to invest with a gender lens? And how to incorporate a gender lens investment strategy in a fund's investment policy statement. So let's get straight into it. So what is gender lens investing? Very simply put, it is the deliberate incorporation of gender factors into investment decisions to improve social and investment performance outcomes. Emphasis is on the word deliberate. If you do something that is deliberate, you planned or decided to do it beforehand. And so it happens on purpose rather than by chance, meaning that one needs to be intentional when pursuing a gender lens investment strategy. Let's now move on to why should investors invest with a gender lens? The answer is simple: to enhance investment returns. However, is there value to be earned? We understand the motivation behind the United Nations Sustainable Goal number 5, gender equality, but is there a compelling investment case outside of social impact? Will retirement funds earn better investment returns? And will we be able to protect our portfolios better? To understand this, let's first consider the risks. Gender gaps, whether pay or other, exacerbate inequality and hinder economic growth, which ultimately impacts the financial performance of companies and governments, impacting the retirement savings of members. Now let's consider the opportunities. According to research conducted by Morgan Stanley, for the 8-year period 2011 to 2019, companies with more gender diversity enjoyed a return on equity that was 2% better than companies with low gender diversity. According to a study by MSCI, boards with higher levels of gender diversity tend to experience fewer instances of governance-related controversies, including bribery, corruption, and fraud, and overall stronger management of ESG-related risks. There's also plenty of evidence demonstrating that gender diversity leads to increased profitability and innovation, which means that if it is good for business, it is definitely good for investors. How to invest with a gender lens? What investment strategies should retirement funds focus on to forward gender equality and have the ability to implement a successful gender lens investment strategy? What we show on this slide is that there are 4 main entry points to gender lens investing, and this includes investments in both public as well as in private markets. Let's kick off with using active stewardship to advance gender diversity through voting and engagement. Most retirement funds have ESG policies, and you can use your stewardship activities to influence the participation of women on the boards of companies, at the decision-making level, at C-suite positions, as well as when it comes to gender equality workplace policies, which largely refers to the presence of women in the staff and leadership of the company, as well as the policies and practices that support gender diversity throughout the human resources cycle, from recruitment and promotion to talent retention and workplace culture. The next area that retirement funds can consider is to invest with women-owned and led fund managers. A recent study by Citywire demonstrated that only 5% of funds in South Africa are managed by women-led teams. So there exists an opportunity to close this gender gap. What we have found is that women tend to hire women. Like myself, when I started 274 Investment Managers, I made sure that all the leadership positions in the business were held by women, because only women understand what it means to open the door for other women. It's also been demonstrated that women in leadership roles tend to create broader stakeholder value to shareholders, staff, and communities. Women also identify investment opportunities that men would sometimes ignore. So investing with women-owned and led fund managers can add significant value to a retirement fund investor's portfolio. The third point is providing access to capital to businesses owned and led by women. Women-owned businesses are often excluded from getting access to credit. Also, women-owned businesses do not participate across all the economic sectors and value chains. Enhancing women participation by the provision of capital to their businesses can further and enhance socioeconomic development. Lastly, to invest in businesses whose activities are responsive to the needs of women. A good example would be to enhance businesses that support women education, healthcare, and technology, as well as providing access to financial services to women businesses. Now that you know how to invest with the gender lens, the next step is to develop and articulate a gender lens investment strategy as part of your retirement fund's investment policy statement. So the first step in the process is to understand the landscape and the areas of impact that the fund wants to focus on. This is achieved through interrogating the subject, through workshopping and unpacking it in a lot more detail. Once this is concluded, the retirement fund can make the commitment and then clearly articulate your strategy, from objectives to role players to asset classes, and including key performance indicators. How are you defining gender lens in the investment thesis? What are your criteria? Does your team have access to gender expertise in the context of designing the investment strategy? Once your strategy has been implemented, it's very important that you ensure that it forms part of your normal board of trustee meetings, so that you can track portfolio KPIs to ensure that you remain on track to achieve your policy objectives. So understanding where you are now, knowing where you want to be, you can easily design a roadmap to get you to where you need to be. To articulate and draft a policy, requires certain key principles to be unpacked. Those key elements are listed on the slide: ownership, leadership, employment, consumption, and entrepreneurship. These 5 key elements fit in with the 4 key entry points on how to invest with a gender lens. Depending on the level of impact and the area of impact the fund wants to achieve, those areas would need to be unpacked in greater detail and articulated very clearly in terms of criteria, KPIs, and measurement indicators in the investment policy statement. Thank you for listening to our presentation on Gender Lens Investing. 274 investment managers since 2007 have been successfully managing a diversity, equity, and inclusion investment program, demonstrating our commitment to allocate capital to women-led and gender-forward asset management businesses, including channeling capital to investment opportunities which seek to close the gender inequality gap. After all, an economy that works for women works for all. Please do reach out if you are interested in designing and developing and implementing a gender-forward investment strategy. Thank you for listening.